Why homeschooling works. Today, I want to help you to understand that a little more because I know it's been pretty freaky for some people who have never done it before. And I don't know if that's you. So I thought today would be a good day for me to kind of explain why homeschooling works because there's a lot of misinformation about what homeschooling is. And one article was saying how this forced season of homeschooling is going to ruin a whole generation of kids because it's been proven that online schooling doesn't work. Well, so that's true, actually. It is unproven that having a completely online education works. And but the thing you need to understand is that that is not at all what homeschooling is like. Homeschooling is more hands-on, more engaged, more parent involved. The parent is choosing what works for their child instead of being forced in a certain curriculum or a certain format or a certain way of doing it. And so I thought what we should talk about for just a few minutes is to talk about why homeschooling works and how do you know that you can make it better for your children. My name is Lee Benz, and I'm the HomeScholar, and I'm a homeschool consultant, and I help parents homeschool through middle school and high school. So if you don't know me, this is what I do for a living, okay? So let's get started with talking about homeschooling. I think the first thing you need to understand is that homeschooling is the best possible learning environment for kids. It's safe and secure with parents who love them. It's there's no bullying, at least not that's not funny bullying with your siblings. It's no school violence. Of course, in this time of panic about the pandemic, they're safe and secure from disease as well. As we all stay home and stay safe, this is a way for you to continue education. But there are a lot of statistics that actually demonstrate exactly how effective homeschooling is. It's been researched an awful lot. And while online school has not been proven to be effective, homeschooling itself has been proven to be effective. And so the research from the National Home Education Research Institute, they tell us that homeschoolers score in the 87th percentile in reading, the 82nd percentile in math, the 84th percentile in science, and the 85th percentile in social studies. And I will say that in my work with other homeschoolers, that's kind of what I see. I mean, we get a range of people and children with different abilities, that's true. But because homeschooling is such a great learning environment and kids can learn in a way that makes sense to them, they tend to outscore how they personally would have scored had they been in a different form of education. The research also shows that homeschooling is effective regardless of the parent's level of education. So whether you have a high school degree or a college degree or a graduate degree, it is statistically true that you are more likely to provide a good education. Also, it is effective regardless of race. There is a huge discrepancy in what is required for students of different races in public school, but that is not true when you're homeschooling. When you're homeschooling, you can tailor your expectations to what your child is capable of doing. And so they don't have that discrimination aspect when they're homeschooling. But homeschooling is also effective regardless of the amount of state regulation and oversight. And I think that that is the biggest problem that I'm having right now with all of this forced home educating using the school at home model, is that that is an extremely rigorous amount of state interference, regulation, and oversight. And that is not correlated to effectiveness. We actually do better as home educators who can homeschool with freedom, because when you do that, you are not just the teacher, but you're the principal, you're the school district, you're the school board. You make all of these decisions based on the needs of just a handful of children, right? And so that's why it can be so effective. Also, though, the homeschooling can be the best career preparation because you have the time. It's so effective. You can actually get it done in a record amount of time. They don't end up with homework all night. And so kids actually have more freedom to pursue the things that they want to pursue. And that way they're able to learn more about careers. If they're playing their, let's say, electric guitar all day long, right? They can actually figure out by the time they're a senior whether they want to be a professional electric guitarist, or whether they would rather buy their own cell phones and be independent, right? So you can let them experience these different things. Maybe they like to perform but they don't want to teach. You don't know what they're going to be doing with that. And so having that trial and error practice at careers is a huge benefit of homeschooling. So you're probably wondering, why? Why does it work? Well, it works because the love that you have for your child is what ensures success. In a public school, the teachers genuinely care about children most of the time, right? But we take that to the next level. We don't just genuinely care. We genuinely love. Not only that, but we are very invested in whether or not our children are ultimately successful in their education, because we have no one else to blame. It is us. And so we feel like it's got to be good, right? And so when you are homeschooling, you are financially invested in whether or not they become a couch potato or become successful. You are invested in wanting what's best for your child. You're invested in wanting what's best for your whole family. As you're making decisions about college, you're thinking about the budget of the whole family. So you have a much fuller picture because of the love that you have for your child. That's going to help you to be successful. I also wanted to share just a couple of scriptures for you. If you are a Christian, have read your Bible, wonder what it would say about your effectiveness. And I wanted to point out Psalm 139, 13 to 16. It says, "For you created my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb, and I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderful made." You see, if your child was given to you by birth or adoption, this is the child that was just boom placed in your lap. You're the best person for the job. This child was given to you, not somebody else. You may feel incapable or unable, but God deals differently because boom, this kid was in your lap, right? The other thing is Philippians 4:13 says, "I can do all things through him who strengthens me," which does not say I can do all things except this one horrible thing called homeschooling, or I can do all things except teach my child calculus. You can actually do these things because God will give you the strength to see it through. And 1 Peter 4:8 says, "Above all, love each other deeply because love covers a multitude of sins." Sometimes people think that's not in the Bible, but it's actually in the Bible. 1 Peter 4:8. And so the way to tie that up with a bow and think about what does that mean to me as a Christian, it means this child was given to you and that you are capable. And when missteps occur, it's going to be okay because the love you have for your child is going to ensure success. So then how do you go about getting started? If you're thinking that you've had enough of this school at home problem that's causing your family stress, and you want some of this freedom that actually results in better test scores in a more relaxed environment, how do you get started actually homeschooling and putting the shackles of public school aside and start doing it yourself? Well, the first step is to make sure that you check your state homeschool law. And I do have an article on Know Your Homeschool Law, and I'll put that into the comments so you can look up your state and you can start obeying your state law. But when you do that, I want you to notice that homeschooling is not at all public school at home, and the requirements do vary by state. But generally speaking, those rules are only applied to homeschool, and the rules that apply to public schools are very different than what applies to private schools or homeschools. They usually will only provide general guidance to private schools or to homeschools, and it's only the poor public schools that get just, here's what you have to do, right? Now, so that means that generally speaking, in the entire northern hemisphere, parents can choose the particulars. You get to choose the method of instruction. You get to choose the curriculum that's going to fit your child. So I want you to recognize, when you look up your state law, what these state laws do not say. And they do not say you need to follow public school laws. Those change constantly. One year they'll say you are mandating 100 hours of volunteer work, which I personally have always had a problem with mandating volunteer put together. That didn't seem to fit. Or they may say, this year everybody has to take this test that you've never heard of before. That's usually not the case when you're looking at the homeschool law. The homeschool law is very general. It usually lasts for decades at a time. And so they make it very non-specific and up to the parent. And in every state, parents are allowed to make a homeschool transcript and a homeschool diploma. And so you are able to do that as well. And when you're homeschooling independently like this, you are able to determine the curriculum and the methods that fit your child's learning style, that fit your family values. And maybe your state passes a law requiring a certain education that would make your grandmother just gasp or blush. But you don't want that for your child, right? So you are able to choose a curriculum and discussions that fit your family values. I did want to give you just a couple of tips on how to choose curriculum. People will ask me all the time, where do you get the curriculum? And there is no the curriculum. There's gallons and gallons of curriculum. And so you're trying to search for the one that fits your family values and fits your child's learning style. Your goal when you're looking for curriculum is not to say, what grade is my child in? Therefore, this is the math they are taking. Okay. Instead, your goal is to choose curriculum that's at the perfect level for your child. Well, what is perfect level? It means that it's challenging. They don't already know the answer. That's really important for gifted kids. They should not already know the answer. And then you want it to be not overwhelming. If it's overwhelming, they can't learn it. If it's too advanced, they simply can't get the skills they need to be successful. You want them to be successful and learn. And so to do that, it has to be challenging, but not overwhelming. The other thing about curriculum is that you're trying to keep them at their ability level in each subject area each year. Okay. So you're looking at, if they're at a certain level, let's say they have dyslexia. So they're at a certain level in reading, and it may be a struggle and it may feel like they're below grade level, but that doesn't mean the rest of the subjects should be affected. You would be able to choose math at this level, social studies at this level, science at this level, and it's really only reading and writing that you're focusing on their ability level that might be below grade level. So you're able to keep it challenging, not overwhelming in every single subject when you're homeschooling, and never do they feel dumb or become prideful because they're profoundly gifted, right? Now, I think my biggest word of advice when you're choosing curriculum is that you always use curriculum that is made for homeschoolers. I cannot overstress that enough. And it is true that homeschool curriculum manufacturers rely on homeschoolers for their income, but that's not why I am suggesting this at all. The reason why you buy curriculum made for homeschoolers is because it assumes the child knows nothing about that subject and the parent knows nothing about that subject. And so it's just easier to teach with, okay? Homeschool curriculum comes with an answer key. Homeschool curriculum comes with a solution manual. You can even find homeschool curriculum that will tell you what words do you say to explain this concept to your child, right? So you can be using the tried and true homeschool curriculum with confidence. Let's use, I don't know, German, for example. If you don't know German and you picked up a curriculum for German, how do you teach? You can't even read the answer key, right? But if you were to get a homeschool curriculum for a certain subject area that you didn't know, you would be able to teach with it. Let me explain what it was like for me when I was teaching my kids things I didn't know. And there was a lot that I didn't know that my children learned. I think math is probably the most common example. They got into calculus, and I was just way in over my head after algebra 2. And so what we did was we bought a curriculum. It had a textbook. It had a video tutorial, 15 minutes a day video tutorial, and it had an answer key. And so my kids would watch the video tutorial, open up their book, they would go through the lessons, and they would check themselves as they went, making sure that they looked at the answer key, if not for questions that they had along the way, but at least at the end of the lesson, they would check their own answers on the answer key. You know, they do that in public school too, right? They correct their own homework. Anyway, and so then when it was time for a test every week or two, I would take away, give them the test. Tests are provided by homeschool curriculum. And then they would take the test without that. And I would just make sure that there was no cheating involved. And then I would correct the test. And that way I could see, in fact, they were actually working. It did make sense to them. They were learning without me ever teaching them. They were becoming self-taught. Now, it's going to be hard to understand, but self-taught is actually the goal. It's not the punishment. It's not a sign of failure. It's the goal, because that's what adult life is. Adult life is learning how to learn. Oh my goodness, I have to fill out my taxes for the first time. How am I going to do that? I guess I better learn how. Or, oh my goodness, it's my first day on the new job. I don't know what I'm doing. How am I going to learn? I guess I better learn how. Or you go to college and the professor stands there. He's talking about things that you've never heard in the textbook, right? Your job is to learn from the textbook, and the professor tells you something completely different, and you have to learn how to learn. And that's what adult life is like. So when you are homeschooling and you realize you're in over your head and your child is learning how to learn for the first time, it feels awkward to the student. I will say my kids were pretty freaked out the first time they had to learn something because they were so used to knowing, but actually it's a sign of success and not at all a sign of failure. So I hope that has been really helpful for you to learn about today and think about how to homeschool, and that I've given you some encouragement. And I'll be checking back later on Facebook to see if you have any questions for me. Okay, so you have a great day. Take care and stay home and stay safe. Bye.